Joseph Hayes typed the final line of code with a satisfying click. Another problem solved. Another day done. He leaned back in his office chair and checked the time. 6:30 p.m. Earlier than expected. Good. He could surprise Alice and the kids with an early return from his business trip. The rain pattered against his hotel window. Typical Seattle weather. Joseph stood, stretching his tall frame. At 41, he still maintained the lean build of his younger days, though small wrinkles had begun to form at the corners of his eyes. Evidence of years spent staring at computer screens, building the comfortable life his family now enjoyed. He packed his laptop with the same precision he applied to everything in his life. Each item in its proper place, each decision calculated. The hotel room looked almost untouched as he left it. Bed made, towels hung neatly. The drive home took 30 minutes. Joseph used the time to plan the weekend with his family. Maybe they could visit that new science museum Alina had mentioned. His 14-year-old daughter shared his analytical mind and insatiable curiosity. Or perhaps Caspian would prefer the aquarium. At 10, his son still marveled at everything, eyes wide with wonder at the world. The thought of their faces lighting up warmed Joseph from within. The rain had stopped by the time he pulled into their driveway. The two-story suburban home stood elegant against the darkening sky, windows glowing with warm light. Joseph grabbed his overnight bag and briefcase, taking the stone path to the front door. He unlocked it quietly, wanting to surprise them. The house smelled like the lavender candles Alice always lit in the evenings. Soft music drifted from upstairs, not the classical pieces she usually played, but something modern with a heavy beat. Joseph set his bags down in the entryway and moved toward the staircase. "Alice," he called. No response. The music continued upstairs. Joseph climbed the steps, his hand gliding along the polished wooden banister. The master bedroom door stood half open. A sliver of golden light spilled into the hallway. He pushed the door open further, mouth open to announce his early return, when he heard Alice's voice, but not addressed to him. "He's so predictable." Joseph froze, one foot across the threshold. Alice sat on their bed, back to the door, phone pressed to her ear. She hadn't noticed him. Her laughter, light, carefree, with an edge he'd never heard directed at him, filled the room. "A walking bank account," she continued, unaware of his presence. "Robert, baby, just wait. Once the divorce is final, I'll be free and I'll have everything." The words hit Joseph like ice water. His breath caught, but he made no sound. Years of controlling his emotions during high-stakes business negotiations served him well now. Instead of barging in, instead of demanding answers, he simply listened. He stepped back silently, retreating into the shadows of the hallway. The closet door stood slightly ajar, and through the crack, he could see Alice's reflection in their bedroom mirror. She was smiling grinning as she twisted a strand of hair around her finger. "Yes, of course I've thought it through. I've been planning this for months. The lawyer says I'll get half of everything, including his company's shares." Another laugh. "No, he doesn't suspect a thing. Too busy with his precious computers to notice what's happening right under his nose." Joseph felt his heart rate slowing, his mind cooling. Where another man might have felt his world collapsing, Joseph felt his sharpening into focus. Every word Alice spoke became a data point, information to be collected and analyzed later. The kids? They'll adjust. Besides, they barely see him anyway. Always working, and you're so much more fun. That was a lie. Joseph had always prioritized time with his children, scheduling his work around their events, helping with homework, teaching them to code. Alice was the one who frequently missed Alina's science competitions and Caspian soccer games, claiming headaches or conflicts. "Next week. I'll give him the papers next week. Then it's just a matter of time." Joseph backed away, silent as a ghost. He descended the stairs, retrieved his bags, and slipped out the front door, careful not to let it click shut loudly. Back in his car, he sat motionless, breathing steadily, organizing his thoughts. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was the calculation, the coldness, the months of deception. It was about her plans to take not just his money, but his children. Joseph started the car. He would drive around for an hour, then return home as if he'd just arrived. He would kiss Alice on the cheek, hug his children, and go about his evening as planned. He would give no indication that he knew anything was amiss, because Joseph Hayes didn't react with emotion. He responded with strategy. An hour later, he pulled into the driveway again and entered his house with a deliberate heaviness to his steps. "I'm home," he called out. Alice appeared at the top of the stairs, wearing a different outfit than earlier. Her smile looked the same as it had for 15 years of marriage, but now Joseph saw the emptiness behind it. "You're back early," she said, descending the stairs to greet him. "Finished sooner than expected." He accepted her kiss, feeling nothing but the cold calculation behind it. "Dad!" Caspian bounded down the hallway, launching himself into Joseph's arms. Joseph lifted him, savoring the genuine affection that still existed in his home. "Hey, buddy. Miss me? So much. Mom said we could have pizza tonight. Can we?" "Of course." Joseph set his son down as Alina appeared, more reserved but equally pleased to see him. "Hey, Dad. How was the trip?" "Productive." He hugged her, noting how tall she'd grown. She would soon be taller than Alice. "How's the science project coming along?" "Almost done. Could you look at it later?" "Absolutely." Throughout dinner, Joseph maintained the performance. He laughed at appropriate moments, asked about their days, and pretended not to notice how Alice checked her phone every few minutes. He studied her, this stranger who wore his wife's face, and wondered how he'd missed the signs. Later, after the kids were in bed, Joseph retreated to his home office. He opened his laptop, but didn't work. Instead, he began planning. If Alice wanted war, she would get one. But it wouldn't be the battle she expected. Joseph placed his hands on the keyboard and began typing not code this time, but notes. Names, dates, accounts, assets. Everything that would soon become ammunition in the coming conflict. His fingers moved with precision, each keystroke a small but deliberate step toward what would become his most complex project yet. The screen's blue light illuminated his face in the dark room, revealing an expression devoid of pain or anger. Only determination remained. For 7 days, Joseph maintained the illusion. He went to work, came home, helped the kids with their homework, and slept beside Alice as if nothing had changed. All the while, he spoke with his company's legal team under the guise of updating his will, gathering information about what might happen to his assets in a divorce. He documented household expenses, tracked recent purchases, and quietly moved select personal assets to more secure positions. On the 8th day, it happened. Joseph sat at the kitchen table, enjoying his Sunday morning coffee and reading the news on his tablet. Alina and Caspian were upstairs, she helping him with a school project. The house was quiet save for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room. Alice entered wearing a silk blouse and tailored pants, her makeup immaculate despite the early hour. She carried a manila envelope. "We need to talk," she said, her voice controlled but with an undercurrent of tension. Joseph looked up, his face neutral. "About?" She pulled out a chair across from him and sat down, placing the envelope on the table between them. Her manicured finger tapped it twice. "This isn't working anymore, Joseph." "What is it?" He took another sip of coffee, watching her over the rim of his mug. "Us. This marriage." She pushed the envelope toward him. "These are divorce papers. I've already spoken with a lawyer." Joseph set his mug down deliberately. He reached for the envelope, opening it and scanning the first page with practiced indifference. Inside, his mind raced, analyzing her tactics. She had chosen Sunday morning, when the children were home but occupied, ensuring he wouldn't make a scene. She had dressed carefully, armoring herself in her best clothes. She expected resistance, tears, perhaps rage. "How long?" he asked calmly. The question seemed to throw her. "What? How long have you been planning this?" Alice shifted in her seat. "Does it matter? It's over. We both know it has been for a while." Joseph nodded slowly. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pen, the expensive one she'd given him for their 10th anniversary. With steady hands, he signed each flagged page, initialed where required, and dated the document. "There." He slid the papers back across the table. "Anything else?" Alice stared at him, confusion creasing her carefully made-up face. "That's it? No fight, no begging." Joseph leaned back in his chair. You want your freedom. You have it. A flash of uncertainty crossed her features before her smirk returned. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about arrangements for the children and the division of assets. Of course. Joseph stood, gathering his tablet and empty coffee mug. I assume you'll be moving out. Yes. She faltered for a moment. Tomorrow. Would you like me to tell the children? Or will you? We should tell them together. Alice rose as well, clutching the envelope to her chest. Tonight. Joseph nodded again and turned toward the sink to rinse his mug. He heard her huff of breath behind him, clearly unsettled by his composure. Her heels tapped against the hardwood as she left the kitchen. Alone, Joseph gripped the edge of the sink, allowing himself one moment of raw emotion before locking it away again. The water ran over his hands, cold and clarifying. This was just the opening move. The real game was only beginning. That evening, they gathered the children in the living room. Alina sat on the armchair, legs tucked beneath her, while Caspian sprawled on the carpet. Both sensed the tension, their young faces watchful and wary. Alice spoke first. Your father and I have something to tell you. Caspian looked up from the carpet fibers he'd been picking at. Are we getting a dog? No, buddy, Joseph said gently. Your mother and I have decided to separate. She'll be moving to her own place tomorrow. Silence fell heavy and thick. Alina's face hardened, her eyes darting between her parents. Caspian's brow furrowed in confusion. Like a divorce? He asked. Yes, Alice confirmed. Sometimes adults realize they're better apart than together. But why? Caspian's voice trembled. Did Dad do something wrong? Alice opened her mouth, but Joseph cut in. No one did anything wrong. People change. Your mother wants a different life now, and that's okay. He saw the flash of irritation in Alice's eyes. She hadn't expected him to frame it so neutrally. Will we have to move? Alina asked, her voice flat. No, Joseph assured her. You'll stay here with me. Your mother will visit, and sometimes you'll stay with her. But I don't want Mom to leave. Caspian's face crumpled. He jumped up and ran to Alice, wrapping his arms around her waist. Please don't go. Alice stroked his hair, murmuring reassurances. Over his head, she gave Joseph a triumphant look, as if Caspian's distress somehow proved her point. Alina hadn't moved. She watched the scene with an unsettling stillness, her adolescent face showing a maturity beyond her years. I think I'm going to my room, she said finally. Alina, wait. Alice began. Let her go. Joseph interjected. She needs time. After Caspian had been calmed and sent to his room with promises that nothing would really change, Joseph and Alice stood alone in the living room. That went about as well as could be expected, she said, adjusting her blouse. They'll adjust, Joseph replied, echoing her earlier phone conversation words back to her, though she didn't know it. Children are resilient. I'll be by tomorrow around noon to get my things. I've already arranged for movers. Joseph nodded. I'll be at work. Take what's yours. The lawyer will handle the rest. Alice headed for the stairs, then paused. For what it's worth, I did love you once. Joseph met her gaze steadily. I know. She seemed to expect more, but when nothing came, she continued upstairs. Joseph remained in the living room, listening to the house settling around him. From upstairs came the muffled sound of Caspian crying. Down the hall, Alina's door remained firmly shut. Joseph closed his eyes briefly. Then he went to comfort his son. The next day, Joseph went to work as usual. He closed his office door, declined calls, and immersed himself in code. Numbers and logic had always been his refuge, their patterns soothing in their predictability. Unlike people, unlike Alice, when he returned home that evening, her closet was empty, her vanity bare. Perfume bottles, jewelry boxes, expensive shoes all gone. What remained were the photographs on the walls, the children's artwork, the bones of the home he'd built. Alina was at her desk when he checked on her, books spread open, pencil moving across paper. You okay? He asked from the doorway. She didn't look up. Fine. Want to talk about it? Not really. Her pencil paused. Is she living with him? Joseph stiffened. With who? Now Alina did look up, her eyes the same shape as his, but the same color as Alice's, meeting his directly. Robert, the guy from a gym. The one she's always texting. A cold clarity washed over Joseph. You knew. I'm not stupid, Dad. She's not exactly subtle. Alina turned back to her homework. You deserve better. Joseph crossed the room and placed a hand on her shoulder. She leaned into the touch slightly, the only indication that she wasn't as composed as she appeared. We'll be okay, he promised. I know. She gave him a small smile. You always have a plan. Later, after checking on Caspian, who had exhausted himself with tears and now slept deeply, Joseph returned to his office. He opened a new document and began typing again, this time with a specific purpose. Robert Cole, gym owner, approximately 35. Affair with Alice for unknown duration. That IT wasn't much, but it was a starting point. And Joseph Hayes was very, very good at building things from the ground up. 2 weeks passed in a new routine. Joseph took the children to school before work and picked them up after. He cooked dinner, helped with homework, and tucked Caspian in at night. Alice called occasionally to speak with them. Her voice bright and artificial through the speaker, and on weekends, she took them for outings, amusement parks, movies, shopping trips, returning them loaded with new toys and clothes. Trying to buy their affection, Joseph thought, but kept such observations to himself. Meanwhile, he began his investigation. IT started simply enough. He joined Robert's gym, paying for a year's membership up front. The facility was upscale, with glass walls and chrome equipment gleaming under bright lights. Robert himself was there often, moving among the members with practiced charm. Joseph kept his distance at first, establishing himself as just another client. He came in the mornings before work, when the place was quietest. He observed. He waited. On the third day, he struck up a conversation with a woman at the front desk. Great place, he commented, signing in. Been open long. About 5 years, she replied. Robert built it from nothing. Quite the success story. Impressive. He must be a smart businessman. She smiled, leaning forward. Between us, I think he had some help. His girlfriend invested a lot. She's got money, you know. Joseph raised an eyebrow. Lucky man. They're quite the couple. Been together almost 3 years now. 3 years. The information sank into Joseph like a stone. Alina had been 11 then. Caspian just 7. 3 years of lies. You know her? He asked casually. Alice? Sure. Comes in all the time. Gorgeous woman, always perfectly dressed. Joseph nodded, keeping his expression neutral. Thanks for the chat. Have a good day. He walked away, his mind cataloging this new information. 3 years wasn't just an affair. It was a parallel life. Over the next week, he pieced together more of the puzzle. He befriended a trainer who loved to gossip, listened to conversations in the locker room, and checked social media accounts. Alice had been careful to keep her own profiles clean, but Robert was less discreet. There were photos of them together at restaurants, at parties, at a beach resort, all dated during times Alice had claimed to be with friends or at conferences, but Robert wasn't the only one to a casual comment from the gossipy trainer. Before Robert, she was with that tech investor. What was his name? Sent Joseph down another path. Soon he uncovered evidence of at least 2 other affairs. One with a businessman who frequently traveled to Seattle, another with a local artist whose gallery Alice had claimed to visit for cultural enrichment. Joseph documented everything meticulously. Names, dates, locations. He didn't confront Alice with any of it. Not yet. He was building a case, gathering ammunition for the war to come. 3 weeks after signing the divorce papers, a new thought struck him. It came in the middle of the night, jolting him from restless sleep. A suspicion that had been growing, unnamed, in the back of his mind. The next morning, he called in sick to work for the first time in years. After dropping the children at school, he drove to a medical clinic across town. I'd like to order paternity tests, he told the receptionist. For 2 children. She handed him forms without judgment. You'll need DNA samples from all parties. Joseph nodded. I have access to the children's toothbrushes. Will that work? Yes, sir. And the mother? That won't be necessary. I just need to know if I'm the father. The woman's eyes softened slightly. Results take about a week. Rush it, Joseph said, pulling out his credit card. Please. 5 days later, an email arrived in his secure account. Joseph sat in his home office, cursor hovering over the attachment. Whatever information lay inside would change everything. Again, that he clicked. The medical terminology was dense, but the conclusion was clear: 0% probability of paternity for either child. Joseph leaned back in his chair, the room spinning slightly around him. Neither Alina nor Caspian was his biological child. 14 years of fatherhood a lie. 10 years a lie that he stood abruptly, needing to move. Pacing the office, he struggled to process this new reality. The children he'd raised, taught, loved, they shared no DNA with him. Their biological fathers could be any of Alice's lovers, or men he didn't even know about. Did it matter? Joseph stopped pacing, the question hanging in his mind. Did it change how he felt about Alina and Caspian? Did it negate the years of bedtime stories, of teaching Alina to code, of cheering at Caspian soccer games? No, it didn't. They were still his children in every way that mattered. But Alice had stolen something precious from him, the truth. She had let him believe these children were his flesh and blood, all while knowing they weren't. That night, as he helped Caspian with his math homework and listened to Alina talk about her day, Joseph watched them with new eyes. He searched their faces for signs of their true parentage, for features that should have told him years ago. But all he saw were the children he loved that he wouldn't tell them. Not now, maybe not ever. This burden was his to bear, but Alice would know that he knew. And she would pay for every lie, every deception, every moment stolen from him. Joseph tucked the paternity results into a white envelope and placed it in his briefcase. "Let the games begin," he whispered to the empty room. Chateau Blanc stood gleaming in the heart of downtown Seattle, its glass facade reflecting the city lights like stars. Inside, white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers created an atmosphere of refined elegance. It was the restaurant where Joseph had taken Alice for their anniversary each year, where he had proposed 15 years ago. Now, for his position at the bar, Joseph watched Alice and Robert seated at the corner table, his usual table. They were celebrating something, champagne glasses clinking, faces flushed with success. Alice wore a new dress, expensive by the look of it. Robert had his hand on hers, thumb caressing her wrist in a familiar gesture. Joseph adjusted his tie and gathered the white envelope from the bar. He'd been waiting for this moment, timing it perfectly. Earlier that day, his lawyer had confirmed that everything was in place. Now it was time for the first move in his carefully orchestrated game, that he approached their table without hurry, footsteps muffled by the plush carpet. Alice saw him first, her smile freezing mid-laugh. Robert followed her gaze, his expression shifting from confusion to smug satisfaction. "Joseph." Alice recovered quickly, straightening in her chair. "What a surprise." "Hello, Alice." Joseph nodded politely, then turned to her companion. "You must be Robert. I've heard so much about you." Robert's grip on Alice's hand tightened. "Look, man, I know this must be awkward, but—" Joseph raised a hand. "Not at all. I actually came to congratulate you both." Confusion flickered across their faces. "Congratulate us?" Alice asked cautiously. "On your freedom," Joseph said smoothly. He placed the white envelope on the table between them, a small gift to mark the occasion. Alice glanced at Robert, then back at Joseph. "That's civil of you. I've always believed in closure." Joseph stepped back. "Enjoy your evening." He turned and walked 3 paces before Alice called after him, curiosity overcoming caution. "What is it?" Joseph paused, looking back over his shoulder. "Open it and see." He continued toward the exit, positioning himself near the coat check, where he could observe without being obvious. From there, he watched as Alice opened the envelope with manicured fingers, removing the documents inside. Even from a distance, Joseph could see the moment understanding hit her. Her face drained of color, hand trembling visibly as she passed the papers to Robert. The paternity test results, clear and irrefutable. Robert scanned the document, his expression darkening. He pushed back from the table, the movement sharp and sudden. "You told me they were his." Robert's voice carried across the restaurant, turning heads. "I thought they were," Alice stammered, her composure cracking. Joseph moved closer, drawn by the unfolding scene. "Close enough to hear," but not to interfere. No, you knew, he said softly when he reached them again. You knew, or at least suspected. And now, you'll know what it feels like to lose everything. The restaurant had fallen silent, diners watching the drama with poorly disguised interest. A waiter hovered nearby, uncertain whether to intervene. You can't prove anything, Alice hissed, clutching the papers. This could be fake. The lab is very reputable. Feel free to verify with them directly. Joseph smiled slightly. Though I suspect you already know the truth. The timing lines up, doesn't it? Your affair with the tech investor around when Alina was conceived. That artist for Caspian. Robert's face contorted with disgust. You said I was the only one. That before me, it was just him. He jerked a thumb toward Joseph. Robert, please, I can explain. Save it. Robert stood, throwing his napkin on the table. We're done. But the divorce settlement. Alice began. Should be interesting. Joseph finished for her. He nodded to Robert. Good luck with everything. He walked away without looking back, the sound of Alice's desperate attempts to salvage the situation following him out the door. Outside, the night air felt clean and cool against his face. For the first time since discovering Alice's betrayal, Joseph felt something like satisfaction. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his lawyer. Everything filed as discussed. Court date next week. Joseph typed a quick response. Proceed as planned. He walked to his car, the city lights blurring around him. Phase 1 complete. Now for Phase 2. The next morning, Joseph sat at his kitchen table with Alina and Caspian, their breakfast mostly untouched. He had prepared their favorite foods, blueberry pancakes for Caspian, avocado toast for Alina, but the tension in the air made eating difficult. Your mother called, he said finally. She won't be taking you this weekend. Caspian pushed his pancakes around his plate. Is she sick? No, buddy. She's dealing with some personal issues. Alina looked up sharply. What did you do? Joseph met his daughter's gaze steadily. What makes you think I did anything? Because Mom's been weird lately. More than usual. And now you're being all quiet and calm, like you get when you solve a hard problem. Alina set down her fork. So, what happened? Joseph considered his next words carefully. Your mother and I are handling the divorce our own ways. Mine is perhaps more strategic than she anticipated. You're getting back at her, Alina stated flatly. No, I'm ensuring fairness. It's because of Robert, isn't it? Caspian piped up. Joseph and Alina both turned to stare at him. You know about Robert? Joseph asked, surprised. Caspian shrugged. Mom's always on the phone with him. And one time when she took us to the mall, we met him for ice cream. He has tattoos. The boys sounded impressed by this last detail. Joseph absorbed this new information, anger flaring briefly before he tamped it down. Yes, it involves Robert, and some other matters between your mother and me. But I don't want you two worrying about adult problems. We're not babies, Dad, Alina protested. I know, but this is between your mother and me. Joseph stood, gathering his empty coffee mug. Finish up. School bus comes in 20 minutes. Later that day, Joseph received a call from Alice. He let it go to voicemail, listening to the message afterward. You bastard. Her voice hissed through the speaker. You think you're so clever. Robert won't even talk to me now. Is that what you wanted? To ruin everything? Call me back, damn it. We need to talk about what you're doing. Joseph deleted the message without responding. His lawyer had advised minimal contact except through official channels, and he intended to follow that advice. That evening, another call came, this one from a number he didn't recognize. Against his better judgment, he answered. Hey, speaking. This is Robert Cole. The voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Joseph moved to his office for privacy. I'm listening. Look, I don't know what game you and Alice are playing, but I want out. Those kids, are they mine? Either of them. I don't know. The tests only confirm they're not mine. You need your own tests to determine if they're yours. A heavy sigh came through the phone. Jesus, what a mess. Indeed. Listen, I didn't know about the other men, or that the kids might not be yours. Alice told me you were distant, emotionally unavailable, that you were practically separated already. Joseph absorbed this without comment. I'm backing off, all right? Robert continued. Whatever you two have going on, I don't want any part of it. I got my own problems now. What kind of problems? Joseph asked, though he already knew. Financial audit. Some questions about gym investors. Nothing I can't handle, but I don't need more complications. Joseph smiled to himself. The anonymous tip to the Financial Regulatory Board had worked quickly. I hope it resolves in your favor. Yeah, well, just wanted you to know I'm not the enemy here. Noted. After the call ended, Joseph leaned back in his chair, considering this new development. Robert was distancing himself from Alice faster than anticipated, but convenient nonetheless. Without her lover's support, Alice would be more vulnerable, less confident in her position. The next phase could begin. The downtown law office bustled with morning activity as Joseph sat across from his attorney, Cameron Wilson. Tall windows offered a panoramic view of Seattle, the Space Needle visible in the distance through rain-streaked glass. Everything is proceeding as planned, Cameron said, sliding a folder across the polished table. Judge Harmon is known for being fair but strict about contract law. The paternity fraud revelation strengthens our position considerably. Joseph opened the folder, scanning the documents inside. And the financial provisions? Airtight. The prenuptial agreement she signed had clear infidelity clauses, combined with the supplementary divorce agreement, which she signed without proper review. Apparently, she has essentially forfeited any claim to your assets. In fact, given the paternity fraud, we can countersue for damages. I don't want to bankrupt her completely, Joseph said, looking up from the papers. Just ensure she doesn't profit from her deception. Cameron nodded. Still playing it soft, I see. Very well. But be prepared, her attorney has requested a meeting. They'll try to renegotiate. Let them try. 2 days later, Joseph sat in the same conference room, now facing Alice and her lawyer, a sharp-featured woman named Veronica Tate. Alice looked less polished than usual, strain showing around her eyes and mouth. This agreement is unconscionable, Veronica began, tapping a manicured nail against the divorce papers. My client signed under duress, without proper legal counsel. Cameron raised an eyebrow. She had 2 weeks to review the documents and consult with an attorney. The signature page clearly indicates she waived that right. She was emotionally vulnerable. She was planning this divorce for months. Joseph interrupted, his voice calm. Phone records show multiple calls to divorce attorneys dating back nearly a year. Hardly the actions of someone caught unprepared. Alice's eyes widened. You check my phone records? I checked everything, Alice. The affairs, the planning, the lies. All documented. Veronica placed a restraining hand on Alice's arm. Let's stay focused. Mr. Hayes, be reasonable. You're attempting to leave my client with nothing after 15 years of marriage. Not nothing. Just nothing of mine. Joseph leaned forward. She keeps what she brought into the marriage, plus any assets acquired solely in her name. Given her spending habits over the years, that's quite substantial. The children are not biologically mine, as you well know, yet I'm still offering full financial support for them and requesting primary custody. I'd say that's more than reasonable. Alice's facade finally cracked. You can't do this to me. The house, the cars, my lifestyle, you can't just take it all away. I'm not taking anything away. I'm simply not giving you what isn't yours. Joseph met her gaze steadily. You gambled, Alice. You lost. This is revenge, she spat. No, this is a consequence. The meeting ended in a stalemate, but Joseph knew the advantage was his. The court date was set for the following week. That weekend, while the children were at a previously arranged sleepover with friends, Joseph changed the locks on the house. He also contacted the banks, credit card companies, and investment firms, ensuring Alice's access to joint accounts was restricted to minimum maintenance amounts, as permitted by the divorce filing. Monday morning brought a flurry of angry calls from Alice, each increasingly desperate. Joseph let them all go to voicemail, documenting each for his lawyer. You've frozen the accounts? How am I supposed to live? The hotel is demanding payment. I need access to our savings. Joseph, this isn't fair. The credit cards aren't working. Did you cancel them? You can't just cut me off like this. By Wednesday, her tone had changed from angry to pleading. Please, Joseph, I know you're upset, but we need to be adults about this. Call me back. I'm sorry about everything. Can we talk? Please. He didn't call back. The court date was Thursday. The courthouse stood imposing against the gray Seattle sky, rain falling steadily as Joseph arrived with Cameron. They passed through security and headed for the designated courtroom, their footsteps echoing on marble floors. Alice and Veronica were already seated when they entered. Alice wore a conservative navy suit, her hair pulled back severely. She looked thinner than Joseph remembered, the strain of recent weeks evident in her posture. Judge Harmon, a stern woman in her 60s, called the court to order promptly at 9. The proceedings moved quickly, with both lawyers presenting their cases. Cameron methodically outlined Alice's infidelity, the paternity fraud, and the valid legal agreements she had signed. Veronica attempted to paint Alice as a victim of an emotionally distant husband who had manipulated her into signing unfair agreements. But her arguments fell flat against the mountain of evidence Cameron presented. When Judge Harmon finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades on the bench. "Mrs. Hayes, did you read the divorce agreement before signing it?" Alice hesitated. "I skimmed it. I was upset." "Did Mr. Hayes prevent you from seeking legal counsel?" "No, but did you understand that by signing, you were agreeing to the terms contained therein?" "Generally, yes, but I didn't realize." "Mrs. Hayes." Judge Harmon's tone brooked no further evasion. "The court cannot protect individuals from their own poor decisions. The agreements you signed are legally binding. The infidelity clauses in your prenuptial agreement are enforceable, and the evidence of paternity fraud is, frankly, disturbing." Alice paled. "Therefore, this court upholds the financial arrangements as outlined in the divorce agreement. Mrs. Hayes shall retain assets solely in her name, and personal property is specified. Mr. Hayes retains all other marital assets, including the family home. Child support will be determined pending the outcome of further paternity testing if Mrs. Hayes wishes to pursue it." The gavel fell with finality. Alice sat stunned, while Veronica whispered urgently in her ear. Joseph felt no triumph, no joy, only a cold certainty that justice, of a sort, had been served. Outside the courtroom, Alice caught up to him, grabbing his arm. "You've ruined me," she hissed, tears threatening to spill. "I have nothing left." Joseph gently removed her hand. "You have exactly what you came into this marriage with, Alice. Your freedom. Isn't that what you wanted? Where am I supposed to go? What about the children? You might try Robert," Joseph suggested mildly. "Oh, wait, he's dealing with his own financial investigation." How unfortunate. Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You did that too?" "The audit." Joseph merely smiled. "Have a good day, Alice." He walked away, leaving her standing in the courthouse hallway, the ruins of her plans scattered around her. That evening, his phone rang again. "Robert Cole." "You son of a bitch." Robert growled when Joseph answered. "You called the financial board on me. I have no idea what you're talking about." "The hell you don't. They're freezing my accounts during the investigation. I can't access my own money." "That sounds difficult," Joseph replied evenly. "Almost as difficult as discovering the children you raised aren't actually yours." Silence stretched between them. "She's staying at my place," Robert finally said. "Did you know that? After you cut her off, she had nowhere else to go." "I assumed as much." "Well, that's about to change. I can't afford to support her now, not with this audit. She's got to go." Joseph felt a twinge of something not quite pity, but recognition of the human cost of his actions. Then he remembered Alice's words on the phone. A walking bank account. "Your choices are your own," he said. "As are hers." "Yeah, well, just thought you should know." The call ended. Joseph sat in his quiet living room, the house empty with the children at their friends for another night. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Alice, financially destitute. Robert, unable to help her. The lovers, turning on each other under pressure. Yet there was no satisfaction in it. The victory felt hollow, the triumph empty. Joseph poured himself a rare glass of whiskey and stared out at the Seattle skyline, lights blurring through the rain-streaked window. Tomorrow, he would pick up the children. Tomorrow, life would continue. But tonight, he allowed himself to mourn not for Alice, not for the marriage, but for the life he had thought was real for 15 years. Alina sat cross-legged on her bed, textbooks spread around her, when Joseph knocked on her open door the following evening. "Got a minute?" he asked. She nodded, marking her place before closing the book. "What's up?" Joseph entered, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "I want to talk to you about your mother." Alina's expression closed off immediately. "What about her?" "She's going through a difficult time right now. Financial problems. Because of what happened in court." At Joseph's surprised look, she added, "I'm not stupid, Dad. I know how to use the internet. Public records." Joseph smiled faintly. "You're too smart for your own good sometimes. So you took all the money." "Not all of it. Just what was legally mine." Alina studied him for a moment. "Is this the part where you tell me I should feel sorry for her?" "No," Joseph said quietly. "This is the part where I ask how you're feeling about everything." She looked down, picking at a loose thread on her bedspread. "She called earlier, crying. Said she might have to move away for a while to get back on her feet. Asked if I would come with her." Joseph's heart stuttered. "And what did you say?" "I told her no." Alina looked up, her eyes hard in a way no 14-year-old should be. "She lied to you. She lied to us. She doesn't deserve us." Joseph reached out, taking her hand. "Alina, despite everything, she's still your mother. A mother doesn't do what she did." Alina pulled her hand away. "She called me an ungrateful brat. Said after everything she'd done for me, I should be on her side. But what has she really done? You're the one who's always been there." The words warmed Joseph even as they saddened him. "Love isn't something you earn, Alina. It just is. You could be angry with her, but nothing. I made my choice." She reopened her textbook, signaling the end of the conversation. "I'm staying with you." Joseph nodded, respecting her boundaries. "I'll call you when dinner's ready." Caspian proved a more difficult conversation. At 10, he understood less but felt everything more acutely. Joseph found him playing video games in the den, thumbs moving rapidly over the controller. "Hey, buddy, pause that for a sec." Caspian sighed dramatically but complied. "What?" "Your mom might be coming by tomorrow to talk to you." The boy's face brightened momentarily, then fell. "Is she taking us for the weekend after all?" "No, not this time. She's having some adult problem she needs to sort out." "Because you took all her money." Caspian's directness was startling. "Who told you that?" "Mom texted. She said, you're being mean and not letting her have any money for a place to live." Joseph sat beside his son, choosing his words with care. "That's not exactly true. Your mom and I had an agreement about money, and the judge said we need to stick to that agreement. So she's poor now. Not poor, just not as comfortable as before." Caspian put down the controller completely, turning to face Joseph. "Is it because she has a boyfriend?" "It's complicated, buddy. Grown-ups always say that when they don't want to explain." Caspian folded his arms. "I'm not a baby." Joseph smiled despite himself. "No, you're not. The truth is, your mom made some choices that hurt our family. The consequences of those choices mean she has less money now. Is she going to be okay?" "Yes. She might have to work more or live in a smaller place for a while, but she'll be okay." Caspian nodded, absorbing this. "Can I still see her?" "Of course. She's still your mom, and she loves you." "Do you still love her?" The question caught Joseph off guard. Did he? The anger was there, the sense of betrayal. But love? That had died the moment he heard her on the phone, plotting to take everything from him, including the children who, he now knew, weren't biologically his. "I care about her as your mother," he answered carefully. "But sometimes adults stop being in love. That doesn't mean we stop caring about what happens to each other." Caspian seemed to accept this, turning back to his game. "Can I play now? 5 more minutes, then homework." "Dad, yes. I'm glad I'm staying with you." Joseph ruffled the boy's hair, emotion welling in his throat. "Me too, buddy." The doorbell rang early the next morning, a Saturday. Joseph, already dressed and halfway through his coffee, opened it to find Alice standing on the porch. She looked diminished somehow, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back without its usual perfect styling. "Alice," he greeted neutrally. "The kids are still asleep. I'm not here for them." "Not yet." She shifted uncomfortably. "Can I come in?" "Please." Against his better judgment, Joseph stepped aside, allowing her into what had once been their shared home. Alice entered hesitantly, looking around the familiar space as if seeing it for the first time. "You haven't changed anything," she noted. "The kids needed stability." She nodded, following him to the kitchen. "Coffee?" "No, thank you." She took a seat at the counter, hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I need to talk to you about the children." Joseph leaned against the opposite counter, mug in hand. "What about them?" "Robert kicked me out." The words came in a rush. "I have nowhere to go. My credit cards are maxed, my savings are gone, and I can't afford an apartment on my own. I need help." "Joseph, what exactly are you asking for?" "Money. A loan. Just until I get back on my feet." She looked up, desperation in her eyes. "For the kids' sake." Joseph took a slow sip of coffee. The court was quite clear about the financial arrangements. "Damn the court." Her voice rose, then immediately lowered as she glanced toward the stairs. "This isn't about legalities. It's about our family. The family you were eager to leave for Robert, for the other men before him." Alice flinched. "I made mistakes. Terrible ones. But I'm still their mother." "Yes, you are." Joseph set down his mug. "Which is why I'll pay for a modest apartment for 6 months. Not for you, but so the children have somewhere reasonable to stay when they visit you." Relief washed over her face. "Thank you. God, thank you." "With conditions," he continued. "The lease will be in my name. You'll get a job, any job, to cover utilities and food. And you'll stick to the visitation schedule set by the court." Her relief dimmed somewhat. "You don't trust me at all, do you? Would you in my position?" Alice looked away. "No, I suppose not." She stood, straightening her shoulders. "May I see them now? They'll be up soon. You can wait in the living room." She moved to leave the kitchen, then paused. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for all of it." Joseph didn't reply. Her words meant nothing against the weight of her actions. Alina came downstairs first, stopping short when she saw her mother. Her face hardened instantly. "What are you doing here?" "Alina." Alice moved toward her daughter, arms outstretched. "Baby, I've missed you." Alina stepped back, avoiding the embrace. "Really? You've been too busy to call all week." "I've been dealing with some problems. Dad told us. You're broke because you cheated and lied." Alice shot Joseph an accusatory glance. "It's more complicated than that." "No, it's not." Alina's voice was flat. "You had affairs. You lied about us." She gestured upstairs, presumably to where Caspian still slept. "You wanted to take Dad's money. Now you can't. Simple." "Alina, please. I'm still your mother." "Are you?" "Because mothers don't do what you did." Alina crossed her arms. "I don't want to go with you this weekend. Or any weekend." Alice paled. "You don't mean that." "I do. Your father is turning you against me. Dad hasn't said a single bad thing about you. He didn't have to. I have eyes. I have ears." Alina trembled slightly. "I heard you, on the phone with him. Robert, laughing about Dad, calling him a walking bank account." Alice's mouth opened, then closed. She had no defense against the truth. "I hate you," Alina whispered, the words all the more devastating for their quiet delivery. "I don't want to see you again." She turned and ran back upstairs, the sound of her door slamming echoing through the house. Alice stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "She doesn't mean it," Joseph said finally. "She's hurt and angry. She'll come around." Alice wiped roughly at her cheeks. "Will she? Or will you make sure she doesn't?" "I've never spoken against you to the children, Alice. And I never will. You don't have to. Your actions speak for you." She moved toward the door. "Tell Caspian I came by. I'll call later about the apartment." Joseph nodded. "I'll have the realtor contact you." Alice paused at the door, her hand on the knob. "You destroyed me, Joseph, completely and methodically. Are you satisfied now?" He met her gaze steadily. "This isn't about satisfaction, Alice. It's about consequences." "For what?" "Being unhappy? Wanting more from life than being a software engineer's wife. For betrayal. For lies. For using me for 15 years while building a life with other men." Joseph stepped closer. "For letting me believe those children were mine." Alice looked away first. "I didn't know. Not for certain. But you suspected." and you never said a word. Joseph opened the door for her. Goodbye, Alice. She left without another word, shoulders hunched against the morning chill. The custody hearing 2 weeks later was brief. With the paternity revelation and Alice's unstable living situation, the judge quickly awarded primary custody to Joseph, with Alice granted weekend visitation rights. Rights that, for the moment, Alina refused to exercise as they left the courthouse. Joseph caught sight of Alice standing alone by the steps, watching them. She looked small, defeated. For a moment, he almost felt sorry for her. Then he remembered her voice, cold and calculating, plotting to take everything from him, including the children she now claimed to love so desperately. The moment passed. Come on, guys, he said to Alina and Caspian. Let's go home. Rain lashed against the windows, driven by a fierce October wind. 6 months had passed since the divorce was finalized. 6 months of building a new normal, of healing wounds, of moving forward. Joseph stood in the kitchen, preparing dinner while Alina set the table and Caspian fed their new puppy, a golden retriever they'd adopted from the shelter 3 months ago. Can Rex have some chicken? Caspian asked, watching Joseph trim fat from the meat. Just a small piece, Joseph replied, cutting a tiny morsel and passing it to his son. Don't make a habit of it. I won't, Caspian promised, feeding the treat to the eager puppy who had brought so much life into their home. The doorbell rang, startling them all. They weren't expecting visitors, especially not on such a stormy night. I'll get it, Alina offered, setting down the last plate. Joseph continued cooking, half listening to the sound of the front door opening. Then Alina's voice suddenly tense. What are you doing here? Alice's voice filtered into the kitchen. I need to see your father. Please, Alina. Joseph turned off the stove and wiped his hands. Caspian, take Rex to your room for a bit, okay? The boy nodded, sensing the tension. He scooped up the puppy and headed upstairs, glancing back once with worried eyes. In the entryway, Alice stood dripping on the welcome mat, her hair plastered to her head from the rain. She wore no coat, only a thin sweater that clung to her frame. Alina stood with arms crossed, body language hostile. It's okay, Alina, Joseph said quietly. Go help your brother with Rex. His daughter hesitated, then moved past her mother without a word, climbing the stairs 2 at a time. Alice, Joseph acknowledged. You're soaked. It's raining, she stated unnecessarily. Can I come in? Please. Against his better judgment, Joseph stepped aside, allowing her into the warm house. She stood awkwardly in the entryway, water pooling at her feet. Let me get you a towel. He retrieved one from the downstairs bathroom, handing it to her without comment. Alice dried her hair half-heartedly. I walked here, she said, from a bus stop. Is there a problem with the apartment? Joseph asked, keeping his voice neutral. The 6 months of rent he'd promised was nearly up, and he'd been wondering what would happen next. No, the apartment is fine. She twisted the towel in her hands. I lost my job. The cafe closed. I see. I've been applying everywhere, but no one's hiring. Not someone with my limited work experience. She laughed bitterly. 15 years as a housewife doesn't look great on a resume. Joseph said nothing, waiting for her to reach the point of her visit. The apartment lease is up next week, she continued. I can't afford to renew it. I can't afford anything. She finally looked up, meeting his eyes directly. Please, let me see them. You see the children every other weekend, Joseph pointed out. That hasn't changed. Not lately. Alina refuses, and Caspian. She swallowed hard. He's pulling away too. I'm losing them, Joseph. What do you expect me to do about that? Talk to them. Tell them to give me another chance. Her voice broke. They listen to you. Joseph considered her for a long moment. The woman before him bore little resemblance to the polished, confident Alice who had handed him divorce papers. Her designer clothes had been replaced by worn jeans and thrift store sweaters. The apartment he'd arranged was modest but decent, yet she looked as though she'd aged years in mere months. The children make their own decisions, he said finally. Alina is old enough to choose whether she wants to see you. Caspian follows her lead. So that's it? You won't help me? I provided financial support for the children. I've never spoken against you to them. I've maintained the visitation schedule as ordered by the court. Joseph's voice hardened slightly. What more do you want from me, Alice? Forgiveness, she whispered. A chance to make things right. Joseph shook his head slowly. You made your choices. Now live with them. Alice flinched as if struck. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer. No, I take no pleasure in your situation. But you won't help either. I've helped enough. Joseph moved toward the door, signaling the end of the conversation. It's dinner time. The children are waiting. Alice didn't move. I have nowhere to go, Joseph. The lease ends next week. I have no money, no job prospects. Please. That sounds like a problem you should discuss with your boyfriend. Or one of the others. Perhaps one of Alina's or Caspian's actual fathers might be interested in supporting you. The cruelty of the statement hung in the air between them. Alice paled. I deserve that, she acknowledged quietly. But I'm asking you, human to human. Help me. Joseph studied her, searching for the manipulation, the angle. But all he saw was desperation. Still, his resolve remained firm. I'll extend the lease another month. After that, you're on your own. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me. Use the time wisely. He opened the front door. Goodbye, Alice. She stepped back into the rain, pausing on the porch. I did love you once, you know. In the beginning. I know. Joseph watched her walk away, a small figure disappearing into the storm. Then he closed the door and returned to his family. Later that night, after the children were in bed, Joseph sat in his office, staring at the rain-streaked window. The confrontation with Alice had unsettled him more than he cared to admit. Not because he felt guilty, he didn't, but because seeing her reduced to begging had brought him no satisfaction. The revenge he'd methodically executed had worked perfectly, yet the victory felt hollow. His phone buzzed with a text from Serafina Grant, the journalist he'd met at a tech conference 3 months ago. Still on for coffee tomorrow? Joseph smiled slightly. Looking forward to it, he set the phone down, his thoughts turning to the future rather than the past. Alice was no longer his concern. She had made her choices, and now she would live with them, just as he was living with his. Dad, have you seen my blue notebook? Alina called from upstairs. The one with all my coding notes? Joseph looked up from his laptop at the kitchen table. Check the living room bookshelf. You were reading there yesterday. A moment of silence, then found it. Thanks. 8 months had passed since Alice's rain-soaked appearance at their door. 8 months of settling into new rhythms, of healing, of moving forward. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. Joseph had redecorated parts of it, with input from the children. New paint colors, new furniture arrangements, small changes that made the space feel fresh, unencumbered by the past. Rex bounded into the kitchen, now nearly full-grown, his golden fur gleaming in the morning sunlight. He nudged Joseph's hand with his wet nose, requesting attention. No treats before breakfast, Joseph told him, scratching behind his ears. You know the rules. Caspian appeared, backpack slung over one shoulder. At 11, he was growing taller by the day, his face losing some of its childish roundness. Dad, can Rex come to my soccer game this weekend? If the field allows dogs, sure. Joseph closed his laptop. Ready for school? Almost. Did Mom call about Saturday? Joseph kept his expression neutral. She texted, said she's looking forward to seeing you. Alice had finally found steady work as an administrative assistant at a small insurance firm. The pay was modest, but it had allowed her to rent a small apartment on her own when Joseph's extension of the lease finally ended. Caspian had resumed regular visits, though Alina still refused. Cool. I want to show her my science project. Caspian stuffed a granola bar into his pocket. She'll think the robot arm is awesome. I'm sure she will. Joseph checked his watch. Bus comes in 10 minutes. Better grab your lunch. As Caspian rushed to comply, Alina descended the stairs, notebook in hand, headphones around her neck. At 15, she carried herself with a seriousness beyond her years, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Ready? Joseph asked. She nodded, slipping the notebook into her messenger bag. Advanced Coding Club meets today. I might be late. Text me when you're done. I'll pick you up. Actually, Alina hesitated. Lisa's mom offered to drive me home. We're going to work on our project together at her house. If that's okay. Joseph smiled. Of course it's okay. Have fun. Just be home for dinner. Serafina's coming over. A small smile curved Alina's lips. I like her. She's smart. Yes, she is. Joseph felt a warmth spread through his chest at his daughter's approval. Serafina Grant had entered their lives gradually, first as a friend, then as something more. A former tech journalist who had transitioned to freelance writing, she possessed a sharp intellect and kind heart that had drawn Joseph from the beginning. She promised to help me with my investigative journalism project, Alina added, zipping her bag. She knows all the best research techniques. I'm sure she'll be happy to help. Joseph handed her a lunch bag. Bus. Go. The children rushed out, Rex following to the door before being called back. Joseph watched through the window as they joined other neighborhood kids at the bus stop. Alina immediately absorbed in conversation with her friend Lisa. Caspian roughhousing with a boy his age. Normal. Ordinary. Healing. His phone buzzed with a text from Serafina. Looking forward to tonight. Need me to bring anything? Just yourself, he replied. Kids are excited to see you too. Joseph moved through the morning routine, letting Rex out into the fenced backyard, tidying the breakfast dishes, preparing for his remote workday. His company had been flexible about his hours since the divorce, allowing him to be home when the children needed him. The arrangement had worked so well that they'd made it permanent, with Joseph coming into the office only 3 days a week. At his home desk, surrounded by family photos and children's artwork, Joseph opened his laptop again. The latest project required his full attention, a complex security system for a major financial institution. He immersed himself in the code, finding satisfaction in creating order from chaos, solutions from problems. Hours passed in productive work until his phone buzzed again. A different message this time, from a number he recognized but had not seen in weeks. Need to talk. Important. Please call when you can. Joseph frowned. Alice rarely contacted him directly anymore, instead communicating about the children through a co-parenting app as suggested by the court. For her to text him meant something unusual that he debated ignoring it, then decided against it. Whatever it was, better to address it quickly rather than let it fester. Hello, Alice, he answered when she picked up his call. Joseph, thank you for calling back. Her voice sounded different, steadier, more composed than the last time they'd spoken. What's the important matter? I've been offered a job. A good one, with an international insurance company. A pause. In Chicago. Joseph absorbed this. I see. When would you start? Next month if I accept. It's a significant raise, a chance for real advancement. And you're calling because of the children, Joseph. Her voice softened. I want them to have the opportunity to visit me in Chicago. Regular visits. I know the custody agreement specifies they remain in Seattle, but I'm asking for your cooperation in arranging travel. Joseph considered this. Alice moving to Chicago would mean less frequent visitation, but also a clean break for all of them. Distance that might allow everyone to heal more completely. Caspian will be disappointed to have you further away, he said finally. I know, but I can fly back regularly, and during school breaks, they could come to me. If you allow it. There was no manipulation in her tone, just a straightforward request. And Alina, a sigh. I don't expect her to want to visit, but the door will always be open. Joseph nodded, though she couldn't see it. Let me think about it. Talk to the children. If they're open to the arrangement, I won't stand in the way. Thank you. Relief colored her voice. I've been trying, Joseph, to rebuild, to be better. I know, and he did. Despite everything, Alice had maintained sobriety, held a job, and never missed a scheduled visitation with Caspian. Small steps, but meaningful ones. There's one more thing. Alice hesitated. I received a letter. From Robert. Joseph tensed. What did he want? To apologize, actually. He's in Arizona now. Apparently, getting caught in that financial investigation was a wake-up call. He's working as a personal trainer, staying clean. Good for him. He mentioned you. Said you were right to do what you did. That we both deserved it. Alice paused. He wasn't wrong. Joseph remained silent, unsure how to respond to this unexpected admission. Anyway, I just wanted you to know. About Chicago. About everything. Her voice grew quiet. I'm trying to make amends, Joseph. Not to win you back or to change the past. Just to be someone our children might respect again someday. I hope you succeed, Joseph said, and was surprised to realize he meant it. Not for her sake, but for the children who, despite everything, still carried a piece of her in their hearts. I'll let you know when I've made the final decision about the job, she said. Thank you for hearing me out. After the call ended, Joseph sat for a long moment, processing the conversation. Alice in Chicago, 1,000 miles of distance. Perhaps that was what they all needed, space to grow beyond the shadow of betrayal and retribution. The rest of the day passed quickly in focused work and household tasks. By evening, the scent of roasting chicken filled the house as Joseph prepared dinner. Alina arrived home first, excited about the progress on her project. Caspian followed shortly after, muddy from soccer practice but grinning with the uncontainable energy of boyhood. The doorbell rang just as Joseph was setting the table. I'll get it. Caspian raced to the door, Rex at his heels. Serafina entered amid enthusiastic greetings from boy and dog alike. Tall and athletic, with curly dark hair and intelligent eyes, she balanced a bakery box in one hand while fending off Rex's excited jumps with the other. Easy, buddy, she laughed, scratching the dog's head. The cake is for after dinner. You brought cake. Caspian's eyes widened. Chocolate raspberry. From that bakery you like. Serafina handed the box to Joseph as he approached, accepting his quick kiss with a smile. Hi. Hi yourself, he replied, the simple exchange holding warmth that needed no elaboration. Alina appeared in the doorway. You're still going to help me with my journalism project, right? I've been researching techniques for investigative interviews. Absolutely, Serafina assured her. I brought some sample question frameworks that might help. Dinner was a lively affair, filled with overlapping conversations about school projects, work challenges, and weekend plans. Joseph watched his children interact with Serafina, Alina eager for mentorship, Caspian simply enjoying her playful nature. The scene felt right in a way he couldn't quite articulate. Later, after the children had gone upstairs to finish homework, Joseph and Serafina sat on the back porch, watching the stars emerge in the clear night sky. Rex dozed at their feet, occasionally twitching in doggy dreams. Alice called today, Joseph said, breaking a comfortable silence. She's considering a job in Chicago. Serafina turned to look at him. How do you feel about that? Relieved, mostly. It would create a clean break. More distance. He reached for her hand. Make room for what's next. And what is next, Joseph Hayes? Her fingers intertwined with his. He smiled, the expression reaching his eyes in a way it seldom had before. I'm still figuring that out, but I know who I want beside me while I do. Serafina's answering smile held promise. Good answer. Above them, the stars continued their age-old dance, indifferent to human dramas, yet somehow comforting in their constancy. Joseph breathed deeply, feeling the weight of the past lifting further with each passing day. He was not the same man who had stood frozen in his bedroom doorway, listening to his wife's betrayal. That man had been broken, then hardened into something cold and calculating. The man sitting here now was softer at the edges, tempered by experience, but not defined by it. The children weren't the same either. They carried scars, yes, but also strength. Alina's fierce intelligence, Caspian's resilient optimism, these qualities had not just survived the family's fracturing, but had somehow been honed by it. And then there was Serafina, unexpected and unplanned, bringing with her a perspective that reminded him there was more to life than old wounds and calculated revenge. That moving forward required not just leaving the past behind, but building something new in its place. Penny for your thoughts, she said, nudging his shoulder gently. Joseph squeezed her hand, just thinking that life has a funny way of leading you exactly where you need to be, even when it takes you through hell to get there. Poetic, she teased. And true. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the night deepen. The future unwritten but full of possibility. 1 year to the day after he'd signed the divorce papers, Joseph received a letter. The envelope was cream-colored, expensive, with his name and address written in familiar handwriting. Alice's handwriting that he stood in his home office, turning the unopened letter over in his hands. The return address was Chicago. She had taken the job, after all, moving 3 months ago. Caspian had visited her once already during spring break, returning with stories of a small but nice apartment, a city full of tall buildings, and a mother who seemed more attentive than he remembered. Alina had opted not to go. Maybe someday, she had told Joseph when he asked if she might reconsider. But not yet. I'm not ready. Now, this letter. Joseph suspected its contents likely an apology, perhaps a plea for reconciliation or friendship. Alice had been working with a therapist, according to Caspian. Mom talks about making amends a lot, he had reported. Whatever that means. Joseph knew what it meant. It meant Alice had recognized the depth of her betrayal and was seeking forgiveness. The problem was, Joseph wasn't sure forgiveness was his to give anymore. Not because he held on to anger that had faded considerably over the past year, but because he had moved so far beyond the man who had been betrayed that the offense itself seemed to belong to another lifetime. He placed the unopened letter in the bottom drawer of his desk. Perhaps someday he would read it. Perhaps not. Either way, it no longer held power over him. The door to his office opened, and Serafina peeked in. Ready? Everyone's waiting. Joseph smiled, pushing the drawer closed. Coming. He followed her downstairs to where guests had gathered in the living room. Alina and Caspian sat on the couch, Rex sprawled across their feet. Cameron, Joseph's attorney-turned-friend, stood by the fireplace, chatting with colleagues from Joseph's company. A few neighbors and friends completed the small gathering. Listen up, everyone, Serafina called, claiming their attention. She slipped her hand into Joseph's, the ring on her finger catching the light. We have an announcement. Joseph squeezed her hand, looking around at the faces of those who had supported him through the darkest period of his life. As you know, Serafina and I got engaged last month. A chorus of congratulations rose from the group. What you don't know, he continued, is that we've set a date and venue. And well, everything. Alina's eyes widened. When? Serafina grinned. Next month. Small ceremony. Just family and close friends. She glanced at Joseph. We didn't want to wait. Why the rush? Cameron asked, raising an eyebrow. Joseph and Serafina exchanged a look before she answered. Because in about 7 months, we're going to need a bigger house. A moment of stunned silence, then eruptions of joy. Alina leapt from the couch with a squeal of delight, throwing her arms around Serafina. Caspian looked confused until Joseph clarified. We're having a baby, buddy. The boy's face split into a grin. I'm going to be a big brother. Awesome. The celebration continued around them, but Joseph found himself stepping back, watching it all unfold with a sense of wonder. These people's lives were his real victory. Not the calculated dismantling of Alice's plans, not the financial retribution, not even the custody of the children. The true win was this: standing in a room full of genuine affection, with a future bright with possibility, surrounded by people who knew him, really knew him, and chose to be there anyway. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the children were asleep, Joseph stood in his backyard looking up at the stars. Serafina joined him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. Penny for your thoughts, she murmured against his shoulder. Just thinking about how far we've come, he replied. A year ago, I was consumed with making Alice pay for what she'd done. Now, he turned to face Serafina, placing a gentle hand on her still flat stomach. Now I can barely remember why it seemed so important. That's called healing, she said, covering his hand with hers. And moving on, Joseph nodded. There was a letter from her today. I didn't open it. Do you want to? No. Whatever she has to say, it belongs to the past. He kissed Serafina softly. I'm more interested in the future. Inside the house, in the bottom drawer of his desk, Alice's unopened letter lay forgotten. Later that week, Joseph would move it to a box in the attic, along with other remnants of a life no longer his. Eventually, during a future move to a larger home for their growing family, the box would be discarded entirely, its contents including the letter consigned to ash. The man who had once plotted elaborate revenge over betrayal was gone, transformed by time and love, and the simple act of choosing to live well. In his place stood Joseph Hayes, father, soon-to-be husband, expectant dad, a man who had discovered that the best revenge wasn't destruction, but creation, building a life so complete that the past became irrelevant. Today asked for Alice. She would continue in Chicago, gradually rebuilding her relationship with Caspian, tentatively reaching out to Alina through emails and birthday cards. She would never fully recover the life she had discarded so carelessly, but she would find a different kind of peace in acceptance and small acts of atonement. And that, Joseph realized as he stood in his yard with the woman he loved, was the last laugh, not a vindictive chuckle of triumph, but the genuine laughter of joy that comes from understanding that the best way to overcome darkness is to create light. The past was dead, and he had won.